This video is brought to you by the No Fear community.
So Frank, you have been a part of media and technology your entire life, and you've seen a lot of changes. Talk about how things are different since the rise of the PlayStation generation.
Well, the PlayStation generation has changed expectations of students. They are less and less interested in sitting with a textbook and reading, much more interested in being involved in online. And that is going to be increasingly changing the way that schools operate. It hasn't changed it a lot yet, but it's going to. And it will change what companies like ours do, who are providing instructional services online and in print for the schools. And that's going to be a major shift over the next 10 years. You may have seen the book Disrupting Class, which came out of a group at the Harvard Business School, which talks about the disruption in education that technology is going to provide. Those who work for us, all of my colleagues at Curriculum Associates, are very aware of this. And Clayton Christensen, who was the senior author on that book, really lays out a timeline which says that over the next 5 to 10 years, there will be a monumental shift in how schools operate. I don't think the basics of effective management change that much. An effective manager is something of a teacher and a leader rather than a boss. In our company, some of us talk a lot about boss management and leadership management. And a leader is one who is as much a teacher as a hands-on manager, forcing people to do things, rather setting goals and objectives and then providing the support that facilitates them to be able to do that, and to have a meaningful experience as an employee in the company, to go home at the end of the day saying, well, what I did in some way is going to make classrooms better places for teachers and children. That, for me, has been a meaningful life, and I think that's what drives a lot of our employees of all ages.
That's interesting, because in Pekka's book, No Fear, he talks about a lot of these extra benefits, that the experiences of the employees as being just as important, if not more important, for example, than monetary compensation in the new world. But I will say, I believe you've always been ahead of the curve, because I've been to your company. I've noticed that you have art hanging on the walls of the place where the textbooks are put together in an assembly line. You have classical music piped in. You have a vegetable garden next to your building. So you've always been very much in tune with the details of what makes a beautiful, worthwhile experience for the worker during their workday.
Yeah, it's less about paternalism and more about creating a kind of a place where I would want to be and where other people come and say, gee, I'd like to be here. My life has been populated by one mistake after another, starting when I was a teen and going right on up. And a friend of mine who was one of the co-founders of the company, George Moore, once said, well, you know, learning is the correction of errors. And if you think about learning to ride a bike, what happens when you first get on a bike? You fall off. It's an error. But you learn. And then from that error, and if you fall off enough and keep persisting, you'll eventually learn to ride the bike. And a lot of things about learning in general follow that same pattern. Learning is the correction of errors. So mistakes, if you make the same mistake over and over again, you probably aren't learning, and people that persist in doing that may not make good employees and may not stay with us. But that's very few. The thing that I think that I would like to leave behind is a sense of mission, that what this company has been about from the day it opened its doors in 1969 under the leadership of other people is the feeling that making classrooms better places for teachers and children was a mission worth having through instruction. And Donald D. Durrell, who in those years was the dean of the Graduate School of Education at Boston University, once said to me, he said, well, you know, Ferguson, basically I'm an engineer. And I said, Dr. Durrell, I thought you had your PhD in Ed Psych or something like that. And he said, oh yeah, Ferguson. He says, I did that. But look, what we're trying to do here at BU is find materials and processes that get the greatest amount of learning per unit time. far as I'm concerned, that's engineering. And so in a funny sort of way, I think our business cards could say instructional engineer on them. They don't, but they think they probably could, and it wouldn't be far off. So leaving a legacy behind of a focus on doing just that, providing materials and processes and media and materials that facilitate learning is really what we want to be all about, and I think that can carry us forward for a very long time.
This video is brought to you by the No Fear community.